In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a shelf using the grouping technique. Step one is to create the portion of the shelf which is going to hold a drawer. So I'm going to take the rectangle tool. I'm going to lay down a rectangle from the origin. I'm then going to extrude this up slightly, which will give the bottom of my shelf some depth. I'm then going to use the offset tool, and it's right here. Looks like two half circles overlapping. Move to one edge, click, and then move inwards. And what this is going to do is it's going to create one wall for our shelf. To create the opening for the drawer to fit into, we're going to draw two lines parallel to each other and then delete this line right here. I can then extrude up one wall. Select the bottom face of your shelf, take the move tool, hold down option to make a copy, and move this face off of the shelf. Now this will be the bottom of our drawer. In order for it to fit into the shelf, we're going to need to offset the wall so they're slightly smaller. So take the offset tool once again, move on to this face here, and move it inward slightly. You can then delete the external perimeter. Extrude this face upwards to give it some type of volume, and then take the offset tool once again to create walls. Extrude the walls upwards. You can then place a little knob onto the face of your shelf like so, laying down a circle and then extruding it outwards towards us. Alright, now grouping will help us understand whether this drawer fits into the shelf, so I'll highlight the whole drawer, right click on it and make it a group. This way when I move it back and forth into the drawer it doesn't stick to it. Now with this in place, I'm going to move it into the shelf and just maneuver it so it gives me a sense of whether the drawer fits into the shelf, and it looks like it does. There's some space in between here and also at the back wall if I move it backwards. So looking pretty good so far. I'm now going to create the lid for my shelf, and I don't want to use any glue, so I'm going to put some pegs at the top to install the lid once I print it. So step one, remove the drawer from the shelf and temporarily draw a line across the top of your object. With this, also set some distances for pegs, so I'm going to measure down from the center point. I'm going to temporarily draw some lines to help me figure out where the midpoint is. And I'll draw all the way down to the midpoint here, and I'm going to temporarily draw two lines like so. I'll take the circle tool, start dragging outwards, and in this case I'm going to make it a radius of 100, and I'll do the same on this side as well, radius of 100. I'm going to delete away the lines that just help me establish where the midpoint is on my object. These ones can go as well. Right, so now what I'll do is I'll select all the faces on the top of my drawer, including the little circle things, and then take the move tool, hold down option, and move this face off the top. Okay, great. I can now delete this line right here, and that will allow me to see my box once again, my shelf actually. I'll then extrude the pegs up a certain distance, let's say 150 millimeters, and I'm going to do the same on this side as 150. Now I'm going to go ahead and fix up the lid. Step one, take the eraser tool and delete away the lines, because the lid itself doesn't have any walls, it's just a flat surface. Take the offset tool and offset the circle slightly so the pegs fit into them. I'm going to offset this by about 40, and I'm going to do the same on this side as well, 40. Alright. Then delete this internal portion. Our holes are slightly bigger. Then select everything and go ahead and extrude it. I'm going to make my lid about, let's say, 100 thick. Now 100 thick isn't going to be able to fit these pegs, so I'll probably have to make it an extra 200 large. I'm going to add some volume to the top of my lid. Otherwise, the pegs themselves don't have anything to sit on. Alright, so you can see that there's some holes for my pegs now. So the final step is to make sure everything fits together, but first of all, delete away these green surfaces or gray surfaces on top of your lid, and you'll see that there'll be a hole that forms. Go ahead and group every portion of your shelf, selecting all connected, right-clicking and making it a group. Doing this also for the main portion of your shelf. So all connected, right-clicking, and then making it a group. The drawer itself is already a group. I'm then going to select this object, and then I'm going to move it from here and move it point to point on top. I'm then going to look and make sure that there is enough room for my peg to fit into the top, so that will fit quite nicely. I'm then going to go ahead and install the drawer. First selecting it, taking the move tool and moving it into the shelf. So there's my drawer on the shelf now. And what this does, it really gives me a sense of what this would all look like if it's printed. There are definitely some ways I could improve it, for example making the pegs extend up slightly higher, and also maybe making the drawer a little bit taller too so it sits flushly with the top. So that's how you create a drawer. Use the grouping technique to test and make sure that all the components fit together correctly.